Welcome to the Filmmakers 412 podcast. I'm your host, Michael Ray. Joining me today is Pittsburgh filmmaker Jesse Hutchins. Jesse is one of the first filmmakers I've worked with, and I admire his talents immensely. When he works on a project, Jesse usually writes, shoots, directs, and edits the films. Some of his films are Waking Moments, Christmas in July, Done Waiting, and Straight and Narrow. His films have been accepted to the Hollywood Reel Independent Film Festival and the Transparent Film Festival. In local competitions, his film Waking Moments won Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Cinematography. Here's my interview with Pittsburgh filmmaker Jesse Hutchins. Well, thanks for coming. You're my first subject, and I picked you because you were the first person that I worked with doing film, and I thought it would just be natural for you to be my first subject, too.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me what you do when you're not filmmaking. You know, what do you do for a living?
I am a welder. I've been doing it since 2002, and I've done different forms. I learned it in high school, and it was stick welding, and it kind of fascinated me, so I was like, I need to learn this. And then I graduated from high school in 2004. That wasn't my first career choice. I actually wanted to go into AutoCAD, and I attended a school in Falls Creek, around DuBois, Pennsylvania. I came to find out that the teacher, she didn't know what she was doing, so I was wasting my time. Dropped out.
Are you from DuBois?
I was born in DuBois. I was raised around DuBois. My mom lived in Brockway, which is about 10 miles out of DuBois, and then I graduated from high school in Kane, Pennsylvania, which is about, I want to say 45 minutes to an hour from DuBois.
Tell me a story about how you became interested in filmmaking.
Well, that's tough. People always ask me that, and I always try to figure it out. My parents separated when I was maybe like 5-ish, I want to say. And my mom moved us out to Los Angeles, so we lived off of Hollywood Boulevard for a few years, where I really got to see it. Like, I mean, we all watch TV and movies, so my mom would take us out to the movies for our birthdays and things like that. And then one day, they were filming 8mm with Nicolas Cage. And where we were living at, next door was this big parking lot. And they had all the trailers and everything set up there. And at that time, I didn't know what movie it was, you know what I mean? So you seen it, and you got excited. So that was like really my first taste in Hollywood. And then I moved back to Pennsylvania in '95 with my dad. We started watching movies. Well, one movie in particular kind of stuck in my head, which was Armageddon. Which is weird. Everybody's like going like these like Scorsese's or things like that, but
No, I like that movie. I've watched it multiple times.
Well, that movie always made me cry. It's just like the ending, you know, it's just real sad. But when I was watching that, I was like, how do they do this? I want to know how are they doing this, because we know that it isn't real. So then at that moment, I kind of made it a point, like that's what I want to do. I want to be able to fool people by doing like all this magic stuff. And
you wanted to make them cry at the end?
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, that's
why I kind of tell the stories I do now, is like I want to get that emotion from the audience the same way that I felt when I first saw it. Because I saw Armageddon in theaters, and I was a kid, so when they rolled credits and I had to go use the bathroom, I'm in the bathroom and I'm just a mess. And my brother's a mess, and everybody else is just staring at us, and we're just like, you know, it's a good movie. So that's where I really kind of like I said, made that decision. That's what I want to do for a living, is be a filmmaker.
So how old were you when you did that?
Oh, I was in middle school, I think. I think that was '98. So I'd say about 12, roughly around there, because I think it was a summer movie. So yeah, about 12.
So when did you sort of jump into the filmmaking part of it? Did you play it when you were a kid? Did you do any films?
No, like I wasn't fortunate enough to have a camera. I did write stories and scripts. I mean, I didn't know, like back then, you know, we didn't have the internet, so we couldn't find out the information on how to do it correctly. So I would just script lines on each line of the notepad and kind of come up with my stories. And then in high school, I took a communication class, and one of the assignments was we had to look at this picture. And in that picture, you had to write down what you saw, smelled, heard, and things like that. So my picture was like a dungeon-looking thing. So I ended up twisting it into a vampire story. And the teacher loved it, so right then I knew, okay, well, maybe I can write. So then, like I said, I started really diving into the stories and scripting things out. Still didn't make a movie. So 2007, I came down to Pittsburgh and attended the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And that's when I got to really make that first film, because it was an assignment. So once I did that, then there I was.
So what courses did you take at the Art Institute? Was it photography or was it media or what?
It was, well, the degree would have been a bachelor's in digital media production. So we got to learn audio. One of the main courses was video one, was my first one. That's where I made that first short film that I had scripted up a long time ago. So we had to come up with a script. I already had it. I was like, that's what I'm doing. Turned it in. The teacher said, yeah, that's pretty good.
That was your vampire script from before?
No, this one was a horror film about a group of kids that were taking a hike in the woods, and then they kind of get stalked by two, like, I don't know, guys. I think they were like lumberjacks or something like that. So like I have this film still, and it's just terrible. But at that time, I was like, oh, it's pretty good, you know?
Yeah, what did you shoot it on? Like what kind of camera?
It was a camcorder. The Sony Handycam, just a small thing. Flip screen on the side, and that's, I think, what, mini DV tapes, I believe it was. So I did on that, and then the first editing software was a Windows Media, what was it? Movie Maker, Windows Movie Maker. That's where I kind of got that first touch on editing before, because like there's editing classes, but they didn't teach us, you know what I mean? Like, so my video one, I edited on that. I knew nothing about sound, so whatever I shot in the camera, that's what I put in the film. So
Like now?
No, not now. Now I know about sound, and that's got to be good, you know. But
I make that joke because that's what I do for this guy's sound.
yes.
So, I mean, I'm joking. Okay, so have you been making movies ever since then?
Pretty much. I only did two semesters, and then I moved back home to Brockway in 2008, and still made short films. Same process. It's on that Sony Handycam, because that was my camera, editing on Windows Movie Maker, and it was just spur of the moment things. So I would get bored, and I'd talk my friends into being in something, and we'd go out and shoot it. And then 2010, I moved to Virginia for a job, and then so 2 years I didn't make anything. Still kind of had like ideas for stories and kind of scripted things out, but then I got back into it in 2013, I believe it was.
One of the things I noticed about working with you is you seem to work with the same people like over and over. Are those the same friends you're talking about that you had made the original films with? Because I remember when I first met you, I looked at some of your previous videos and they had the same guys in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? 48-hour jobs probably.
Well, the 48-hour, it was just pretty much my close circle.
Like Mookie and...
yeah, we had Mookie, and then I recruited a guy from work. He loved movies. He was in. I pitched that idea. I was like, hey, let's make a movie in 48 hours. And he was like, okay. So he pitched in on the money for props and things that we needed. And then 2016, we decided, like, it's time to go out and find some new faces, because everybody's always made comments like, oh, you got the same people. And I was like, well, that's my friends, you know. So we went out, got some new faces, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Is that something you intentionally try to do? Do you try to mix up the people in your team?
I try to keep the same crew, because you know, they know how I work, I know how they work, and so everything's smooth when we're shooting on the day. But I like to bring in some new faces for actors and talent and things like that. If people go out and watch something, they'll see familiar faces in everyone. So, but we like to bring in some new blood and see what they can do and try to help them out and go from there.
I don't know. It seems like that almost, if you keep using the same talent over and over, it sort of gets old after a while. It sort of like makes you less professional looking,
right?
Just because you kind of assume it's your friends. But,
yeah.
But it's so much easier if you find someone that's really good, and you know you're doing another part, so it kind of makes sense. I understand that.
Yeah, it's kind of like how I am with Brian Saponis. He's pretty talented, and he's like a chameleon pretty much. You throw anything at him, he can nail it. You have no worries there. But other than that, we bring in some new faces. If we have a story and there's somebody we want to work with, we're like, well, let's reach out to them, see what they think of the script, and then we'll go from there. And if they're interested, then we meet with them, talk to them about what's going to go on in that film and the role that they're going to be playing, and then we could just go shoot, and they have a blast, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the things that kind of blew me away about doing this was the whole, like, everybody does this for free kind of thing. It's like this subculture that I didn't know existed. It's just amazing to me that people love this so much that they are willing to give up their weekends and spend money, and it just, I just don't understand it to this day. But I mean, I do it, you know, I'm part of it, so it's interesting. Okay, so how many projects do you think you've worked on to date?
That's a lot. I don't even know. When I was younger, we just be this like spontaneous thing, just go shoot something. So I would say maybe 20-ish on that Sony Handycam.
Have you been working on projects that you didn't write or you weren't part of writing? Or have you ever been on somebody else's crew?
Yeah, I've been on somebody else's crew. I helped Todd Wolfson do the trailer for Batshit. And then I worked on his film, another film that he had. I was at Locust Street. They came into where I worked for the weekend, and we shot some stuff where I work. And so I got to hang around them and see how they worked and what their process was. But other than that, I don't think too many other ones.
That brings me up to one of my other questions I had for you is, where do you go to learn filmmaking?
I just do it, honestly.
I understand that, but the wheel's already been invented. You could probably pick up things from other people. Right. So, like, where do you go to find those things out? Or you just try to go through on your own?
There's a few YouTube channels. One particular, Film Riot. It's ran by Ryan Connolly. I watch his channel a lot. I actually made it a point to go on a couple of Hollywood film sets just to see the process, because like I said, that's what I want to do. You know, that's my passion, is to be a filmmaker, like a full-time filmmaker. So I figured that it was pretty smart just to go on a Hollywood film set and see how things are done.
Right.
So the first one that I was on was Unstoppable with Denzel and Chris Pine. And then when I moved to Pittsburgh, they were shooting Foxcatcher. And so I did 3 days on there as an extra. And I didn't even care if I got paid. I was just on set. I was watching, you know what I mean? So I learned a lot from there just to see how they did things. You
really do want to be a professional filmmaker. That's your lifetime goal.
Yeah.
So if you could see into the future and you would see that you had never made it, would you quit making films now, or would you keep doing it?
I'd probably keep doing it. Like, a lot of people they'll tell me, like, oh, you know, that's your hobby. And I was like, well, yes and no. Like, it's my passion. I want to do it. And to me, it's like my drug. If I'm not creating and making a film, I get like kind of this depressed state of mind. And then once I go back out and I like say I shot something in, so we'll say for instance September, and I've been putting it together. Well, come December, I'm just getting in a sour mood and I have to go do something. So then I'll come up with an idea, round up the people, you know, sell it to them. If they like it, then let's roll. And then once we get back on to do it, I'm in a whole better mood. So,
right. It's like, do you ever work on things that you don't write? Like, have you ever accepted like somebody else's script and said, okay, let's go make that? Or is that part of the process that you love so much you don't want to give up?
I would probably shoot somebody else's script.
Because if you make the big times, you're going to have to do that.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to write everything I make, because it's a pain. It really is. We got a couple of scripts sent to us not that long ago, and so we're looking through those and seeing what's easy for us to do. It's not going to cost like a ton of money. And there's a couple good ones that we got.
What's your favorite genre nowadays? When I first met you, I think it was horror. I'm not sure, but I think it was. No?
I don't know. Everybody that meets me is like, oh, you love horror films. I was like...
That's probably why, huh?
I mean, I like horror films, but that's not the genre that I want to pursue or like I'm strong at. I think dramas is pretty much what I'm aiming for. A couple of dramas that I've done in the past, they've won awards. So I'm thinking that's like in my wheelhouse. I would love to do an action film or a war film. later on down the road if I ever make it big. But
That's big budget stuff.
yeah.
So that brings me to another question. What's the difference between a short film, making a short film, and making a feature besides the huge budget? Like when you go to write it, what's the difference to you?
Well, I haven't really written a feature. I have a few ideas for features, but a short film is something that's doable for me in, say a couple weekends or so. Other than the feature where you're on set for maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. It's kind of easier for me to do shorts, but I kind of want to get out of doing it and get into the longer films. Before I only ever made like 5-minute shorts, and then they kind of got longer to like 10, and then your 48s or 7. We just did 3 this past year that's over 10 minutes. One was like 15, the other's 22, and then the other one's 24.
Wow. So what, out of all your projects, which one's you're most proud of?
I don't know. That's tough to say. It's kind of like asking who's your favorite kid, I don't know. We did a lot of fun ones. I'd probably have to say Straight and Narrow, the recent one that we did.
Really? Do you think, well, the one you won...
It's more cinematic to me. Like, we won 3 or 4 awards for Waking Moments.
Yeah, Waking Moments. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So that was very successful. Do you think you would consider that the most successful one so far?
Yeah, because we got Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Cinematography. And then the recent one that we won awards for, Quietus, we got Best Director and line of dialogue. Or no, prop. We got Best Use of Prop. So yeah, Waking Moments is probably like the best one of them all.
Looking at it, story-wise, it was pretty touching.
Yes.
But I think Straight and Narrows is going to be better as far as accepted. I think it does seem more cinematic.
It's a grounded story, and I think it can relate to a lot of people. I mean, Waking Moments was about, having to deal with a death in the family. But Straight and Narrows kind of touch base on like alcoholism, and a lot of people can relate to that, and like what it can do to your life, and if you're doing things good, and then alcohol can ruin it in a matter of moments. So,
yeah, it's interesting because when you first called me up to do the first project, I looked at your older stuff, and then I look at that, and then now I look at your newer stuff, and I think you've gotten like 1,000 times better. So I'm kind of curious to see how it comes out in a year or so. So that'll be cool. So what would be your dream project?
When I was a kid, it was like a Civil War film. I've always been fascinated with the Civil War. And a couple years ago, I went down to Gettysburg, and I sat up, I think it was around Devil's Rocks. And I just sat up on the rock and just looking out in the battlefield, and I tried to visualize what happened on that day. I think that would be like that passion project. Like that's something that I would do. Either that or a Western. I love Westerns. What
do you think your strengths are as a cinematographer or a filmmaker?
Probably working the camera. I don't know, I feel like I see things differently through the lens. So when I'm shooting something, I wear many hats. I direct, do the cinematography, edit, and write. When I'm looking through that camera, I look at everything pretty cinematic, I think. And it's something that I naturally do, even if I'm just walking down the street. I can look at a building or a car, and I can visualize a shot. And so when I shoot something, I try to do the same thing, and I just want to make it very engaging to the audience. I don't want to have like a boring shot, so I try to layer it and I always try to put the audience in that moment, so it's always close-ups a lot. And I'm trying to kind of open it up a little bit, like the widers, with kind of, do things a little bit differently. Because I just don't want it to be monotonous with just nothing but close-ups.
Right. Do you find that you have a style?
I've been told.
Okay, you've been told by other people that you have a style. Describe it.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. They never really elaborated on that. They just go, I can look at your film. He goes, if there's a bunch, I forget who said this, but he said, if there's a bunch of films that we watch and there's no names on there, not in the credits or anything, I would be able to pick your film out of the whole crowd because you have your own particular style and how you shoot things. I don't know.
A couple of people when I've been around you, have mentioned the shaky cam.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't like to put on a tripod.
No. I don't like to put on tripods because anything can happen in that scene with your talent. So I want to be able to capture that. Like, so if they go off book or whatever, and then they do something that's going to be very powerful, like say we're doing a drama, and the reaction that they do or whatever they do on camera, I want to be able to capture that, and I want to be able to move freely. Because if I'm always looking, like I have the monitor in front of me, but I always see things like on the corner of my eyes. So if I see something, I want to be able to grab that. Because to me, that's good stuff. So I want to be able to get it in the edit and help that film be a lot stronger.
What part of filmmaking do you like the best?
Probably telling a good story. I mean, I like directing. I love directing. And I also love being behind the camera. But I just want to make sure that what we put out there, people are going to really enjoy.
Tell me about Red Slate.
Well, the first production company, if you want to call it that, because we don't make any money, but it was Hutchins Films. I had that company quite some time. And then when I started bringing in different types of people, not just my friends, I kind of figured like I don't want to be. I don't know. In my mind, I felt selfish in a way because it had my name, and I know that it gets my legacy because my name's attached to it. But I didn't want everybody to just be like, "Oh, it's Hutchins Films." So I wanted to make everybody feel like they're part of the team. So I had the idea like, well, let's come up with a different name. And this was probably about 3 years ago. And then we couldn't settle on a name, so I just stuck Hutchins Films. Started working with Brian. I pitched the idea to him. He's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And so then we started tossing names around. And it's about a couple months before we finally settled on Red Slate. And the reason why it's called Red Slate is, well, slate, because it's part of filmmaking, that's the clapper. And we want to have something symbolic attached to that. So we looked on the internet, like what colors, like what meanings they had for the colors. And red kind of stuck out to me because like a lot of people associate red with like different types of things. Like there's evil, which we don't want to do, but it's also associated with power, passion, and love. And so I said, well, we love making movies and telling stories, and we're very passionate about it, so let's go with Red Slate. And that's what stuck. And that's where that came from.
So why Brian?
I don't know. I don't know. We just gravitated towards each other pretty fast. I worked on a project with him in 2017 with Samantha Camp. She was doing the Pittsburgh Sopranos. And he came in for half an hour. We did a quick scene. And he wasn't really on my radar then. Like I got like a little bit, and I even reached out to her, and I was like, I'd like to work with him. And she's like, well, it may be a little hard because of SAG. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then 2018, Brian Kadlesik, I think he did a stage play with him. And they were talking about the 48-hour film project. And Brian K., he called me up and said, hey, I talked to Brian Sabonis, showed him some of your work, and asked him if he'd be interested in coming on for the 48. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, then Brian reached out to me, and we started talking, and then he came and worked on Christmas in July. And then once we got done shooting that weekend, I was like, I got to be friends with this guy. Like, there's just something about him that kind of drew me towards him. And then we chatted a bit, and I don't know, I think we became friends instantly, pretty much, because we both got the passion, and he saw that in me instantly. And so we just went from there, tossed him some ideas and stories, and he was all in, and here we are.
Yeah, he's a shaker and a mover. This guy is busier than anyone I know.
Yeah.
I mean, he has his... I just don't know how actors memorize all that stuff because, just like David with you, I mean, it's like he's working on this, and then tomorrow he's working on that, and the next day he's working on this, and he has to memorize everything for all those different projects.
The great thing about Brian is he always has that script in his hand. That was one of the things that impressed me the most when we were working on Christmas in July. When we were moving between sets, he had that script in his hand, and he was reading his lines. And so when it was time to shoot, he was just on mark every time, so...
That's a good thing. I remember I was working on Street Voices. I just worked on it in one day doing sound. And I was so impressed with the CMU actors because that's what they all were at that. And like there was this one woman, and she just had a few lines, and as soon as she was done with her lines, she was over, spouting Shakespeare that she was memorizing.
Right.
And I asked one of the actors there, I said, would you be up for working on other projects, like 48 hours or whatever? And they said, we don't have time. They are they are driven so hard. And it's just, they don't have time for that kind of thing. It's like their school is just mandating so much. I thought that was really interesting.
So is it like mainly theater?
It's mostly theater, but I was involved with like this one class. I mean, I haven't been doing it that long, but I worked on 2 or 3 projects with this one class. I was really impressed. The quality of the acting was amazing.
Okay.
It was very good. And this one woman, Jenna, she's an actor too, actress, but I've never seen her act.
Okay.
Because she sort of got into the directing part of it, and she was doing great. I really think I want to keep my eyes open and see if she's going to make it big someday.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting. Okay, so what do you think your strengths are? Is it the writing and the directing? What are your strengths?
Be directing and the camera. I'm mediocre at writing. I think I captured lightning in a bottle with a straight and narrow short. Really didn't do too many revisions. I had quite a few people read it over, and there was no problems. They understood the story, and they said that the dialogue was natural and things like that. I don't know. Like, when I'm on set, I'm free. I don't try to like pinpoint one job. I like to do it all. I like to like help out as much as I can. Like even with you, when we're working together, I always like, hey Mike, you need help? You're like, no, I got it. So all right, so I'll go over here and sit and watch. But camera work, like I said, I love the camera. I feel like it's a part of me when I have it in my hands. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough question.
Okay, what about the other end? What do you think your weaknesses are? What do you need to work on?
I do need to work on directing a little bit better. And it could be this is my fault, because like I said, I'm doing so many things on set that I don't really get to concentrate on one job and one job only. I mean, I do give good direction and things like that. I'd have to probably say directing.
See, I haven't been on enough sets to know what a good director does.
Right.
Like how you get that emotion out of the actor.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that would be something I'd like to see, that someone's really known for that. I'd like to see how they do it. And
well, Waking Moments, I kind of had to do that with our lead actress, Katie Grant. One of the scenes, she had a complete meltdown because an object that she sees triggers that emotion. So I tried to explain it to her the best I could. And then I kind of felt like I kind of hit a wall in that direction. So then I looked over at Brian. And I was like, well, how do I explain this to her? And he kind of was like, well, he kind of helped me out in that scenario. And then we got her right where we needed her to be. And then, so she won that award for that role.
I think that Brian would probably be really good at that, just because he's an actor. And he would, he would know what they're thinking and what they're going through. And everybody's different, I'm sure. But, he's a step closer for sure.
Well, I've been reading stuff and watching things and listening to things, and a lot of directors say that to be a good director is you have to take an acting class, because then you know exactly.
Have you done that?
I haven't. I don't know. I'm just too nervous and shy, I guess. I should. I mean, yeah, absolutely should, but maybe one of these days.
Like, how about doing it tomorrow? I mean, who all has acting classes around here?
I don't know.
I think the talent group downstairs has an acting class. I'll sign you up.
Okay.
Okay, what are the steps needed to create a short film? If someone's just getting into this and they want to make a short film, like, what do they need to think about? How do they need to plan it out? That kind of thing.
Well, if you're writing it yourself, you got to make sure that you have, I don't know, I've always been told, like, people who watch shorts, they don't really understand. I don't want to say this to put people under, but I've shown this to some people, like my shorts to people, and I go, what's the story? Like, where's the end? And I'm like, well, this is a short. That's not really supposed to be an end. It's kind of open-ended, and you're supposed to visualize what happens next. I don't know, like, recently I've been trying to make it a point to have like a beginning, middle, and end in a short film, just so like it can prep me for a feature, I believe. So if you were going to do it yourself, I would do some research, watch a lot of films. Like in Vimeo and YouTube, there's short films out there. There's so many short films out there. And you can just search for the genre that you're interested in, so then you can see how they're doing things. So say, for instance, if you're doing like a crime thriller, well, you can search for that, see what kind of stories they're doing and how they're doing it and what they're putting in that time frame, like whether it's 10 to 15 minutes, and then just go from there. Make sure you have a good idea that you're going to be able to bring people on board with. Just don't go out there and go, well, I think this is a good idea. Well, not everybody's going to think that.
You've done that yourself?
Yeah. I get a couple people like, oh, I think this would be a great idea. And I was like, well, maybe
you get
not.
too close to it sometimes, I think.
Yeah. And then find your crew. If you just want to do like one role, like whether it's directing or whatever, you have to go out and find your crew, which is, cinematographer, sound, your production assistants, and whatever else you need. You can recruit your buddies, and you guys can just practice. But do research. I never like doing shot lists, but now I kind of like I have to do that. So then when I'm shooting, because you can plan, will be done in like 2-3 hours, and you don't have a shot list. So then you're trying to figure out what shots you need to get, and then when you get in the edit, you find out, like, hey, we missed some stuff.
Sounds like you know from experience on that.
I know from experience. A lot of films. And then you're sitting in the edit and you're just banging your head against the computer screen. You're like, oh no, how am I going to make this work? Then you got to get creative.
What was the film that we worked on in the barn and we missed a shot on? What was that? Beth.
Yep.
So I was going to ask you, like, what's your worst on-set experience? What is it?
I mean, we had fun filming Beth. If we would have got those shots we needed, would have been fine. But we were, 19 hours shooting, something like that. I never really had there's never a bad day.
I can't remember one.
I can't either.
I mean, it's always fun. You're there,
Yeah.
like, there's never pressure, because...
48s, I mean, they're pressure, but you take it in stride and you get things done. 48s, I mean, they're a nightmare, but I love it.
Do you love it?
I do.
Do you still love it?
I do.
Because I love it less than I did.
We'll see. That weekend when you're filming, you're sitting in the editing, and you're looking at the clock on Sunday, and you're going, oh crap, I gotta get this in 2 hours, and there's so much work that needs to be done. And then you got to factor in travel time, rendering.
Well, I mean, that happened to us. I mean, I didn't work with you on the last 48. Mm-hmm. It was with my buddy Al next door, and he underestimated the rendering time.
Yeah.
And like he hit the button to say render, and it gave him like an estimate, and it was like 2 hours, and we didn't have 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we just realized we threw away that 48 hours. Yeah. We just effed up,
Well, see, when I do a 48, I always promise the crew and the cast that we will have a film turned in on time.
Well, this was just inexperience on us.
Right.
And what happened to us was he hit the button. It said it estimated a time, and like we gave up. I mean, we gave up. Then we look over at the computer, and it was going faster than it said it would. So we had like 8 minutes to get to Chatham College from here, wherever that place is. Mm-hmm. And we literally broke 17 traffic laws getting there. It was funny. And we were the last, team in. It was...
but it turned in on time.
It was by like 3 minutes or something like that. It was... And we shouldn't have been. We screwed up.
Right.
We just didn't have enough experience to do that.
I think what it comes down with me is my computer's so old, it's just bogged down so bad. I don't even have that much stuff on there. I put it all on external hard drives. And
you probably put enough buffer in, though, like buffer time, to make up for that. Because you have enough experience with that now. Well,
my first year, it was a learning thing. Absolutely, 100%.
Have you ever missed a 48-hour deadline?
No. Got a perfect score, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But what I used to do in the early 48s is we'd get done wrapping about 5 o'clock on Saturday. I'm like, all right, I'll edit tomorrow. So we'd do like, let's have a wrap party, So we'd go down to the bar down from my house and do karaoke Saturday night. And then I'd wake up at 8 o'clock Sunday morning, start editing.
It's crazy.
And then it got like really stressful, and I was like, I can't be doing this anymore. So then I was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. When we get done shooting, I'm diving right into that edit because anything can happen, and it will. So I want to make sure I have enough time to get all that done because, like I said, I promise everybody that we will have that film turned in on time. And so far, I made that promise. I kept it.
I went to a Carnegie Screenwriters meeting one time, and that came up in conversation. And I guess what they do is they actually have editors standing by. They'll shoot a scene, flip the cards over, and they'll start editing them right there.
I would love to do that.
Oh, man, wouldn't that be great?
Oh, yeah. Because then they could sit there and tell you, like, hey, you missed a shot. You need to get that shot. That just won't make any sense. You're like, okay, well, let's hurry up and grab it while we're sitting right here.
You need who's the person in charge of that in a crew? You need one of those people. You need a shot list. I mean,
so you'd have, like, script supervisor.
Script supervisor, that's it. Okay, what are good personality traits of a filmmaker? Like, what do they have to do? What do they have to be good at?
Well, they have to be good at their job. What I look for is, like, personality. If they have a good personality. We brought a lot of people on, and I had never met them before. They just show up on the day we're shooting, like, say, 48 or whatever like that. If they're in good spirits, then you're good with me. And I always give people respect when I first meet everybody, you know. They're there to have fun, just like I am, make a film, try to get the best of screenings and whatnot, but just be good at your job. So if you're a production assistant, if I ask for something, I mean, I don't mean it to be like a slave driver or anything like that. It's just, you got a lot of stuff going on. I need somebody to be able to grab something for me. If they got a good spirit, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Then, other than that, I don't know. It's just this job and attitude, I guess.
I noticed there's this huge learning curve with filmmaking. It's like I learn something every time that I go on a set. It's pretty interesting. That's what I like about it. I mean, I like new things. That's what draws me. But what are some of the recent things you've learned from, like, the last project you work on?
Well, for one project we did, Done Waiting, the idea was to have a bolt hole in the windshield. So I learned that you need to put that marker on there where you want that bolt hole. Because it's like a black tape or something, wherever that bolt hole's supposed to be, you'd mark it out.
Oh, so it's there at the same place all the time.
Right, so when you go into your post and you're doing After Effects and you got to track all that, you're able, because you're going to be bringing in a bolt hole from, whatever you got, and then you keyframe it and you'll be able to mark it every time. Well, we didn't do that. So when I wanted to do that in post, it was a battle. I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I don't know. I had to reach out to some people and ask for help. And somebody gave me some advice, and I went with that.
Do you ever use green screen for anything?
I've never used green screen. I worked on a project in October that they used green screen, but I never did it myself, no.
So what are some of the bigger mistakes new filmmakers make?
I would say sound. I've seen some new films that just don't care about sound, I think. I don't know if they don't care about it, but it's not there in their head that, hey, we got to have a good sound, because that's the first thing that anybody notices is the sound. If you're changing angles, with shots, and there's different sounds coming from that, say if you're pointing the camera to the right and then you go to the left, well, it sounds different in that area. So when you make that cut, it sounds differently, and that's going to draw everybody away from the film, and that's what they're going to be focusing on, is that.
When you cut from a medium shot to a tight, I think it's okay for that sound to change. Don't you?
No, I want to make it, I don't know, when I do it, I want to have it sound the same. Like,
it's almost like we're at this distance right now.
Yeah.
So it would be a medium shot or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, if I zoomed in on you, if I used a tighter lens, it would be like me moving closer to you. So the closeness would change the sound too.
Yeah,
it would be a more intimate sound.
I don't think you'd want to do, with film, it's different. You want it to be the dialogue clean and clear, and then you can go in with, ambience or sound design and make it seem like it's a live, scenario or whatever.
See, I don't know if I agree with you on that, which is okay. I mean, I'm studying sound and I'm just learning myself. But
right.
I remember I was watching this series, and I don't watch that much TV, actually. I don't watch that many movies, actually, I hate to admit. But I was watching, I can't even think of the name of it now, but the sound was amazing. It was like this guy, when they were the extreme close-ups, it was so good, like so intimate. I don't know if it was just a tenor of his voice. It just jumped off to me as that's an amazing sound. And when you backed up, it was okay. And if you back way up, then it's okay to be a far away sound. You don't want it to be as good. So I don't know. I think that the tighter you are, the more intimate that sound has to be. So it's just logical that if it's a medium shot, it needs to be a little bit less intimate.
I think depending on the story, maybe.
Maybe. maybe. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Well, because like in Straight and Narrow, we have one scene where we have a wide, and it's kind of echoey because it's the voice is projected through the
Is that the
room.
one where I wasn't there?
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about because
And
I
then
noticed that too.
And then when you punch in, the talent's voice it's deeper, and like to me, like I'm trying to
takes you
pinpoint,
away.
and I'm like, I don't know about this, and I was like, well, I don't see what the problem is. I was like,
Oh, I noticed that right away because that's when I watched films. That's what I noticed. But I noticed that right away. It's like you didn't have a lav on him, and you went with the boom, which was a wide shot, so the boom had to be far away, so you got a lot of echo. And then when you moved in tight, then that boom got a lot closer.
Right.
So I mean, I noticed that. I definitely wouldn't keep it echoey.
Yeah. Well, maybe in the future we'll do some looping or ADR.
Noticed exactly what you're talking about. I noticed it right away. Sorry I wasn't there. I don't know if I could have fixed it either.
Well, we would have lavs, so.
Right. So you didn't have any lavs that day?
No, we just had the boom.
I got so many new toys. I got to show you.
Yeah.
You know what I just bought was it's an Octava
Okay.
microphone. I'll show it to you after this is over. But it's not a great microphone. It's only like a $200 microphone. But what's nice about it is it's small, and it has a swivel head that I paid an extra $75 for. So it's about this long, and then when you swivel, it's this long, and it'll point 90 degrees, so it fits right in that visor, and it points right at the guy's face.
It's like if you're doing a car scene.
Yeah, for a car rig. That's what I bought it for.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I mean,
because if you got a lav on and they're moving around, you're going to be able to get them brush on the mic.
Right. I almost need to get another one, though, for the other person.
Yeah.
There's another mic. I mean, I'll talk to you later about it. What's the most memorable shoot experience you've had?
It'd have to be when I was working with Adam Crawford. His project that he put together was a short film, and it was a lot of firsts for me. We got to fly down Main Street in Du Bois. Well, not Main Street. I think it's Boulevard of the Allied. No, that's here. Crap, I don't remember the name. It's been so long since I've driven on it, but we had a fire truck and a police car chasing after each other, and I got to stand up in the back of my truck flying down this road with the camera. We had to film a fight scene on the fire truck, so I got to ride in the fire truck for the first time.
Well, that's probably your closest experience to an action movie, which is something you'd really love to do, big scale.
Yeah. So there's fighting and a little small shootout, and then we got to film in a police station as well. So that was, like I said, it was pretty fun that night.
Is Adam working on any other projects?
Yeah, he's got a couple scripts he's working on. He's got this one idea. He's kind of, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, he's rebooting one of his projects. And then he's got a comedy in mind. It's kind of like a heist movie. And then he just got a couple projects in his book, I believe.
Where'd you meet him?
Through a mutual friend, which I don't know how they met each other, because Adam was living in Du Bois, I think.
Is he still?
No, he lives in Reynoldsville. But the friend that introduced us, I went to school with in Kane. And he knew that I was making movies, and he tagged me in a post that he was talking to Adam and said that he needed to get a hold of me because I was in the filmmaking. And Adam at the time putting together a feature film. And then he watched some of my stuff, liked it, and then brought me on board.
So when you're doing like a short film, and I realize it'll change with how much production is there, but what do you budget? Like, how do you come up with? You probably pick films that are inexpensive to shoot. I would think that would make sense. Just say your normal, say the Straight and Narrow. What do you think that's going to cost you?
Like for the feature?
No,
the short
just for the short.
It cost us $250, and that it was pretty much food, and we paid something out of pocket for something. It was mainly food, I believe.
And the bar, you just gave them credit?
Yeah, we were very lucky to meet the owner of the Mousetrap. We pitched him the idea and what we wanted to do in that bar, because that was the last things that we needed for this film to be completed, and he was on board from the get-go. Yeah, he only wanted credit, and that the bar would be shown and people would know that was the Mousetrap. So we told him, like, yeah, well, we were planning on doing that anyway. And from that moment, he's like, oh, yeah, go ahead. You got what you need.
That's a blessing, huh?
Yeah, like I said, we were very lucky, because I was stressing out about it, I was like, I don't know, man. If we find a bar, they're going to want some money. Because especially if we got to shoot during business hours, then we're going to have to pay for whatever they're going to lose out in money or in business. And we looked at a couple other bars. One was the Smiling Moose, which we went down there and we looked and we're like, nah, this is going to be a nightmare for everybody. Because if we wanted to bring in extras, so there's parking is really hard to find down there. So when we settled on the Mousetrap, because it's in the middle of nowhere, they got a big parking lot. And like I said, they let us come in during business hours.
No windows, so it could be a good nighttime.
Exactly.
That worked out really well, I thought.
Me too. I think what we pulled off there is you couldn't even tell we were filming it early in the morning.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, so what are you working on now? What's next?
Well, next is the Straight and Narrow feature. We're going to start diving in on that bad boy.
So how are you going to do that without a budget?
Just script it and then go from there and see what we'll need and what crew we're going to need.
Are you going to try to pick up scenes you've already shot?
No, so the short film is kind of like a proof of concept. We're just showing like the tone that we're going with and a little bit of the story that I want to tell in the feature. The feature is going to be kind of similar to the short, but it's going to be totally different. Like I want to make sure that these two are kind of like their own stories in a way, even though it's kind of like the same. The lead character battles with his inner demons and alcoholism, and he meets the girl. That's still going to stay the same, but in the feature, we're just doing things differently. We're working on that, and then we want to turn Done Waiting into a trilogy. So we're going to work on the sequel, and then just kind of shoot some short films between now and the feature. Because I think the first feature will be Straight and Narrow. People have been, from what I've noticed, they've been paying attention to us, and they've seen things from Straight and Narrow, like stills and the trailer, and everybody seems excited for it. So
I'm really excited. I can't wait to see how it does.
Well, our trailer is going to be playing in front of another movie, a friend of ours, in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited for.
Grave Encounters?
Yes. Yeah, Jason Burke, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I actually worked on that one too.
I know. He shot, the day after we shot Done Waiting?
Something like that. I can't remember. If it wasn't yesterday, I can't remember. But it was interesting. What was really interesting about that shoot is, one of the locations was this guy's apartment, right? Mm-hmm. And they gave me directions to get there, and I get there, and it's like this guy is like almost the fiance to my niece.
Okay.
So it was just like, hey, what are you doing?
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to a new filmmaker starting out? What are some of the keys to success?
I would say have your heart in there. You're going to get your heart broken a few times. Make sure that you kind of know what you're doing. People will notice it, especially if you're asking people to do it for free and they're coming in on a day and you're all over the place. And be on time is the main key thing. If you're the director of the film, you got to be there before everybody else.
Are you just saying that because that's a pet peeve of mine?
No, look, that's a point I try to make. There's only one time where I was a little late, and that was because the road was closed on the way there from my directions. But other than that, I'm always early. This past 48, I was like half hour. I told everybody to be there at 8. I was there sitting in the driveway at 7:30. But
yeah, I think that's only professional. And well, there was an experience that you and I worked on a long time ago, and it just like, I will never work with that guy again. It's just like one of those pet peeve things, and it's probably a weakness of mine.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
no. If you're asking somebody to do it for free, I mean, you got to be the one to be there. You got to be a leader, and you're going to get the respect out of your crew. You know what I mean? So just be there on time. Have your heart in whatever project you're doing. If one of your crew members gives you like an idea, they throw out an idea at you, don't be afraid to flirt with that idea. If it doesn't work, I usually try to say, we can try that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we're both on the same page. We leave happy, If we tried it and I go, see, it kind of didn't work. And they're like, yeah, I kind of see your point. So
do you like those ideas or do you not like those ideas?
Sometimes I don't. I don't want to say like I have a kind of like a straight track mind, but I'm not a dictator in any sense. I'm not going to always be like, no, this is my way. It's a team project, Whoever is on that film, you guys are all putting in the work. It is your film. Everybody. It's not just me who I write it and direct it. That's my film. I'm not going to go around saying, well, how do you guys like my film? I'll be like, how do you guys like our film? It's just got to be a team player. And then, so like I said, the key thing is be on time.
You know, I've worked on like, I think 30 some films now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that about you, that you're accepting of other ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that because I've worked with people that aren't. And like, I mean, I'm a commercial photographer, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of visual and I've been around the block, and I know sometimes if you're wearing a lot of different hats, you miss things.
Yeah.
Like if you have someone that can say, hey, what about this?
Right.
And listen, there's a possibility that you're going to end up with a better project. It could be annoying. I could see how it could be annoying.
Right.
But I've worked with people that like don't even consider opening your mouth. It's
Right.
like, I am not interested in anything you have to say. Just shut up and like play with the lights over there or your sound
Yeah,
or
they're-
whatever. That's not what they say, but
Excuse me.
that's what they're thinking. You can tell.
Right. There's been a couple scenarios where somebody threw out an idea and it kind of hit me instantly, like it wasn't going to work. But I didn't like straight up go, no. I go, well, I don't know. And then I explain why that idea is not going to work. Like, because of that, say this, for instance, that scene or that shot, that I need to see something. And that idea might not get to where I want it to go. So I explained to whoever
Right.
threw that idea, is like, well, that's not going to work because of this. And then, so they kind of see my point, and then that's it.
Well, the explaining's great. I mean, that's what you need to do, because if you just totally dismiss someone,
Mm-hmm.
it like, well, at least for me, it leaves a bad taste in my
Right,
mouth.
and I don't want to do that with anybody on the crew, because I'd want them to come back and work for me. If I'm constantly going, no, 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 I go, well, this guy's, he's only going to do things for himself.
Right, right. And that's a good way to go. Okay, well, I wanted to thank you for helping me here.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, since this is my first one, I won't mess it up too bad in editing or anything.
Yeah.
But, okay, if people want to reach you, how can they contact you? Don't contact you.
You can email me. It's at jessehutchins04@gmail.com.
Okay. What about a YouTube channel or Vimeo? Do you have anything like that set up?
We have Vimeo and for Red Slate. I don't know the direct link to that.
Okay, well, they can just do a search then.
Yeah, just search for Red Slate Films. Maybe that'll come up, hopefully.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, and
Thank you for
we'll see
having
how
me.
it goes. I look forward to our next project.
Yes.
Okay, see ya. Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview and maybe learned a few things too. If you like the podcast, please share it with someone you think might be interested. If you'd like to leave a comment, make a suggestion, or join our mailing list, please visit filmmakers412.com. Next week, we'll be interviewing actor Brian Saponis. Thank you.